What do you do when you're Steve McQueen, the king of cool, and a doctor tells you you're dying? He was in the middle of filming when that call came. What he said next didn't just shock everyone on set. It defined what it truly means to face death with dignity. November 1979, Durango, Mexico. The high desert air smelled of sage and dust. Cameras were rolling for what would become Steve McQueen's final film. He was 49 years old, lean and weathered like leather left in the sun. He was still doing his own stunts because sitting still had never been in his vocabulary. The movie was The Hunter. McQueen was playing Ralph Papa Thorson, a bounty hunter chasing bad guys across the American Southwest. But Steve McQueen wasn't just chasing movie villains anymore. He was racing against something far more dangerous: time itself. The production was grueling. 12-hour days in the Mexican heat. Action sequences that would challenge actors half his age. A schedule that pushed everyone to their limits. But McQueen thrived under pressure. Always had. From his reform school days, to motorcycle racing, to his legendary film career, he'd built his life on doing things others said couldn't be done. That morning, McQueen had awakened in his hotel room feeling different. Not sick, exactly, but aware of his body in a way that made him pause while shaving. There was a persistent cough that had been bothering him for weeks. He'd attributed the tightness in his chest to dust and altitude. At 49, he was still in incredible shape. But lately the mirror showed a man who looked older than his years. His assistant for 3 years, a young woman named Sarah Martinez, knocked on his door at exactly 6 a.m. Steve, call from Dr. Kelly's office. Dr. Kelly, McQueen's doctor back in Los Angeles. The one who'd insisted on those tests before he left for Mexico. Blood work, X-rays. Conversations McQueen had blown off because he had a movie to finish and a reputation to maintain. Tell them I'll call back after we wrap today. Steve, Sarah's voice was careful. Measured. They said it's urgent, about your test results. McQueen stopped buttoning his shirt. Urgent wasn't a word doctors used lightly. Urgent meant the kind of news that changed everything. He'd spent his entire life avoiding urgent phone calls from authority figures. Teachers, parole officers, studio executives. But this one felt different. Put them through. He sat on the edge of the hotel bed, looking out at the Mexican landscape where in an hour he'd be doing a high-speed chase scene, where he'd be pretending to be invincible, while a voice from Los Angeles prepared to tell him he wasn't. Steve, Dr. Kelly's voice crackled through the international connection. I need you to sit down. I'm sitting. The results are back. From your lung biopsy. Steve, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have mesothelioma. It's a form of cancer, very aggressive. McQueen didn't speak. Outside his window, the film crew was setting up the morning shots. Grips were moving equipment. Drivers were positioning cars for the chase sequence. His stunt double was testing the motorcycle he'd insisted on riding himself. Steve, are you there? How long? That depends on treatment options. But Steve, this is serious. This is advanced. We need you back in Los Angeles immediately. McQueen's mind wasn't processing the medical terms. It was calculating something else entirely. How many more days of filming were left? How many people were depending on this production? How many months of his life had been spent preparing for this moment? This movie, this chance, this opportunity to prove he could still do what he'd always done. Steve, did you hear me? You need to come home. Today, Doc. McQueen's voice was steady, quieter than usual but completely controlled. I've got 6 more days of filming. 6 days. Steve, this is cancer. Advanced cancer. Every day matters. McQueen stood up, walked to the window. The crew below was setting up exactly the way he'd requested. Every detail perfect. Every shot planned. Every sequence designed to showcase what Steve McQueen did better than anyone else in the world. I'll be there in a week. Steve, you don't understand. No, Doc, you don't understand. I've got a job to finish. He hung up the phone, sat back down on the bed, stared at his hands, the same hands that had gripped motorcycle handlebars at 140 mph, that had thrown punches in bar fights as a teenager, that had signed contracts worth millions of dollars. Now they were the hands of a man with advanced cancer. Sarah knocked again. "Steve, they're ready for you on set." McQueen looked at himself in the mirror one more time. The king of cool, the man who'd built a career on never showing fear, never backing down, never letting anyone see him sweat. Cancer was just another challenge. Death was just another stunt. He opened the door. Sarah was standing there with his coffee and call sheet. But her face showed she'd heard something in his voice during the phone call. "Everything okay?" McQueen took the coffee, looked at the call sheet. Today's scenes: motorcycle chase through narrow Mexican streets, a fist fight in a cantina, and the climactic confrontation where his character faces down 3 armed men with nothing but his wits and his courage. "Perfect. Never better," he said. "Let's go make a move." On set, nothing changed. McQueen threw himself into the work with the same intensity he'd brought to every role for 20 years. The motorcycle chase was shot in one take. The fight scene required no stunt double. When the director called action, Steve McQueen became exactly who he'd always been, the man who made fear look easy. But the crew noticed something different. Between takes, instead of his usual casual banter, McQueen was quieter, more focused. He'd sit alone, smoking cigarettes and watching the horizon like he was seeing it for the first time. During lunch break, he pulled the director, Buzz Kulick, aside. "Buzz, I need to ask you something." "Sure, Steve. What's on your mind?" "If we work nights this week, can we wrap by Saturday instead of Tuesday?" Kulick looked at the schedule. "That's possible, but it'll mean 16-hour days. That's a lot. Even for you. I can handle it." "Steve, if you're sick or something." "I'm not sick." The words came out harder than McQueen intended. "I just want to finish this picture right." That afternoon, they shot the cantina scene. McQueen's character was supposed to be cornered by 3 men, outnumbered and outgunned. In the script, Papa Thorson talks his way out of trouble with a combination of psychology and street smarts. But when McQueen delivered his lines about facing impossible odds, about not backing down even when you know you might not win, something in his voice made everyone on set go quiet. Sometimes, McQueen said to the 3 actors playing his adversaries, "You just got to play the hand you're dealt, even if it's a losing hand, especially if it's a losing hand." It wasn't in the script, but Kulick kept the cameras rolling. That evening, McQueen called his wife Barbara, back in Santa Barbara. "How'd filming go today?" she asked. "Good, real good." He paused. "Barbara, I got some news from Dr. Kelly." She could hear something in his voice, something she'd never heard before. Not fear exactly, but a weight that hadn't been there yesterday. "What kind of news?" McQueen told her. "All of it. The cancer, the prognosis, the choice he'd made to finish the film first." He spoke in the same matter-of-fact tone he used to describe motorcycle specifications or stunt sequences. Barbara was quiet for a long time. "Steve, you need to come home. Right now." "I will. Saturday." "Steve." "Barbara, I've run from things before. I've run from reform school, from bad relationships, from studios that tried to control me. I've spent my whole life running toward the next thing, the next race, the next movie. I'm not running from this. This is different. This is cancer." "No," McQueen said, looking out at the Mexican sunset. "This is just another scene, and I'm going to film it right." The next 5 days passed like a fever dream. 16-hour shooting days, action sequences that pushed McQueen to his physical limit, scenes that required him to project strength, confidence, and unshakable cool, while knowing that every breath was borrowed time. The crew started to sense something was happening. McQueen was performing better than he had in years, but there was an intensity to his work that felt different, final, like an actor giving everything he had because he knew the curtain was about to fall. On Thursday, during a break between setups, Sarah found him sitting alone behind the catering truck, staring at a photograph. It was a picture of his son Chad, taken the previous Christmas. Chad was 19, just starting his own acting career, looking up to his father with the admiration that only a son can have for his hero. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked. McQueen folded the photograph. Put it back in his wallet. About leaving something behind. About what matters when the credits roll. That night he called Chad in Los Angeles. Dad? How's Mexico? It's good, son. Listen. When I get back this weekend, let's go riding. Just you and me. Take the bikes up to Mulholland and see how fast we can make the curves. Sounds great, Dad. You feeling okay? You sound different. McQueen smiled. I'm feeling like I want to spend some time with my boy. That okay with you? More than okay. Friday was the last day of filming. The final scene. McQueen's character, Papa Thorson, finally catches his man after a pursuit that has taken him across 2 states and through every kind of danger imaginable. But instead of triumph, the scene called for something more complex. A moment where the hunter and the hunted recognize something in each other. McQueen delivered his final line. Sometimes the only difference between the good guys and the bad guys is timing. Cut. Kulik called. That's a wrap on Steve McQueen. The crew applauded. It was tradition. The last shot of the last day always got applause, but this time felt different. Crew members who'd worked with McQueen for years were wiping their eyes. Something about his performance over the past week had been transcendent. McQueen stood in the center of the Mexican desert, surrounded by 100 people who'd helped him tell one last story. He looked around at the faces, the grips who'd moved mountains to get the perfect shot, the drivers who'd risked their lives in chase sequences, the actors who'd played opposite him with the knowledge that they were working with a legend. Ladies and gentlemen, McQueen said, his voice carrying across the desert, it's been an honor. That evening, as the crew packed up equipment and prepared to head back to Los Angeles, McQueen sat alone in his hotel room with a glass of whiskey and a telephone. He had calls to make. To his doctor, to his family, to his lawyer, conversations about treatment options and time remaining, and how to spend whatever days were left. But first he made one more call. Buzz? It's Steve. Steve, great work this week. Some of your best stuff ever. Buzz, I need to tell you something. About this week. About why we pushed so hard. McQueen told him. About the cancer. About the choice to finish the film first. About the knowledge that this would be his last performance. Kulik was quiet for a long time. Jesus, Steve, why didn't you tell me? We could have. Could have what? Treated me different. Made special allowances for the sick guy. Buzz, I didn't want to be the actor with cancer. I wanted to be Steve McQueen. One last time. You were. You absolutely were. McQueen finished his whiskey. Outside, the Mexican night was full of stars. More stars than you could ever see in Los Angeles. Tomorrow he'd fly home to doctors and treatments and the machinery of modern medicine. But tonight, he was still the king of cool, sitting in a hotel room after wrapping his final film. Buzz, when people watch this movie, I don't want them to see a dying man. I want them to see Papa Thorson. I want them to see the character, not the cancer. That's what they'll see, Steve. That's a promise. McQueen hung up the phone and walked to the window one last time. In the distance, he could see the lights of the film trucks heading back to the border, carrying the reels of film that contained his final performance. He'd spent his career playing men who faced impossible odds with unshakable cool. Men who never backed down, never showed fear, never let the world see them break. Tonight, life had handed him the ultimate role, playing Steve McQueen while knowing the end was already written. But he'd done it. He'd finished the job. He'd given everything he had to one last performance. And nobody on that set had seen him as anything less than the man he'd always been. The king of cool had faced his final scene, and he'd nailed it in one take. What do you do when you're dying? If you're Steve McQueen, you keep the cameras rolling until the very last moment. You finish the job. You leave something behind that shows the world not how you died but how you lived. That's what it means to face death with dignity. That's what it means to be Steve McQueen.